Hello and welcome to Just-ok-wargamers. Raymond here, and we're going to be looking at Oathmark, Battle of Lost Ages, and how the shooting and spellcasting could be improved for the upcoming second edition of Oathmark, as well as looking at changes that could be made or home rules that you could use for your current games of Oathmark. For me, Oathmark is a rank and flank mass battle game, and the focus really should be on the battle lines clashing, and where you win or lose a battle should be in that battle line with your rank and flank troops. Already discussed that in my first video when looking at the activation system and how you can make it so that it was more advantageous to have a big formed battle line using the command system. What I find with the shooting phase, or the shooting in Oathmark, is that it is highly effective. Whereas I believe shooting should probably be more a supplement to the combat. So it could be used to weaken the enemy in a certain point, so you have more chance of breaking through. Or more ideally, it would be something which you would be able to use to shift your opponent's battle line. Open up a hole in it so your cavalry could get through, or disrupt their battle line so it's no longer coherent and they won't get the bonus of having that battle line. Shooting in Oathmark is more about killing units, taking troops away, making them take those activation tests. And you could potentially make a very effective army using just shooting units, 3 big units of human archers, 3 big units of human rangers, a couple of dwarf heavy artillery pieces, and a spellcaster to get off explosive ammunition. You can nearly make an army that can wipe the enemy off the board before they even get into combat with you. And I think that is a problem in the game, especially if you're going to be going to like a tournament style setting with Oathmark. As an example, here you have a unit of 20 human archers. They're 12 points a model, so it's about 240 points for this unit. Here you have a unit of 20 orc line breakers. I know they're plague monks, but that's the models that I have. The orc line breakers, I believe, are around closer to 18 points each. So this unit is, I think, 360 points, so it's 100 more points. It's got a defense value of 10, and it's got movement 5. So using both its movements, it's going to move 7.5 inches a turn. Remember, in Oathmark, once you've shot with a unit, you can still move it backwards half its move. So this unit here can move back 3 inches. That means that if these two units start off 20 inches apart, the human archer unit, if it activates each turn, is going to be able to probably get off at least 4 rounds of shooting before the orc line breakers can charge in. That's assuming that the orc line breakers pass every morale test that it needs to take from being shot. And on average, a full unit of 20 human archers is going to have a shoot factor of 5 against defense 10. So a roll of a 5 or more on a d10 is going to cause a casualty, and any rolls of a 10 is going to cause 2 casualties. So they're going to average about 3 to 4 kills every time they shoot before moving back 3 inches. That means when they get into combat, this unit of orc line breakers potentially is going to be down to close to under 5 models. So this unit here, once it actually gets into combat, will have a fight factor of 3. The human archers, if they're fighting these line breakers, they're also going to have a fight factor of 3. So the fight factors are going to be the same, but this unit is going to have 20 models which it has to get through, and it only has to get through a handful of the line breakers. Not to mention that every time a line breaker dies, when there's only 5 left, it's going to get 1 less combat dice. So I know this is a scenario that's taken in isolation, but I think it does show that an archer unit of at least 30% less points can have a really solid chance of taking out a unit of heavy infantry without too many worries. And I think that is a issue in the game, with the archers being too powerful. I think there could be a couple of fixes for this, which would be very simple. The most simple fix is to limit the size of an archer unit. So you could limit it to, say, units of 10 for shooting units. That way they're only going to have a shoot factor of 3, and that's going to limit the amount of killing potential, while still maintaining their usefulness in taking out the first model in a rank to reduce the enemy's fighting capability and potentially disordering units. And I think that'd be enough to stop them becoming mass killing machines, especially because you're limited to only 3 units if you had that of 10. Something else you could try out is you could reduce the shooting factor for your units, and instead you could give them a higher chance of maybe not disordering unit, but potentially like pushing a unit back. So it could be that if the unit fails an activation, fails its morale check, it could, instead of becoming disordered, be pushed back half its move distance. This would mean, especially if you combined it with, say, some rule that had like a battle line format, it would help disrupt that battle line, which is how I imagine the archers are to be used. That's really similar to how they're used in Midgard Heroic Battles, which has some really interesting ideas on how shooting should be part of a mass battle system. That's archers. Let's have a look at artillery. So I think it is pretty common that artillery is seen as really, really powerful for its points. It pretty much always will make its points back. I think a Dwarven artillery, heavy artillery is 140 points. So if it could take out, 8 line breakers in a game, it's going to make its points back. I think where the artillery becomes really broken is because it can shoot without needing line of sight. So it can shoot over other units, which is really strong. It's got a really, really long range. But when you start combining it with spellcasters, and you could have a Dwarven wizard, say, with the explosive ammunition spell, which only needs a 5+ to be cast, but it adds a shooting factor to the artillery piece. So it will make it shoot 5, which is really strong for a single artillery piece. It also adds 2 combat dice to it. So even if it's shooting at a smaller unit, it could be shooting at rat ogres or a small unit of 10 elite infantry or 5 cavalry or something, it's probably still going to get the maximum amount of dice. And it's also going to have the champion dice, so chance to do double casualties or even a triple casualty if it rolls a 10. The big fix for artillery, I believe, would be to either greatly increase the points of it. I think people would still take them even if they increase their point cost by 50%. I think they would still be worth it. Perhaps limiting the artillery, so maybe in a 2,000 point game you can have a maximum of 1 artillery piece, could be another idea. You could also do something where you may reduce the shoot factor of the artillery, but you could do something where it affects the morale of a unit more. So it could be something like when a unit suffers a casualty and has to take a morale check from artillery, maybe it could have -2 to the roll or something like that. So it's not going to be killing lots of people, but it's going to have a larger chance of disordering units. That's kind of how I imagine artillery being fixed for version 2. For us, our home rule is we generally just include 1 artillery piece in the game, and that's how we do it. Let's have a look at spellcasters to finish with. So I actually think that the way spellcasters work in Oathmark is pretty good. I like that the spells don't seem to be super overpowered. There's a couple of exceptions when we're looking at something like, I think, explosive ammunition or smoke screen are a bit too powerful. But besides that, I haven't found anything which I think is obscenely broken. Something which I think could change for version 2 is allowing wizards to cast multiple spells. I think it can be a bit harsh when you choose a level 4 spellcaster. They are a huge investment in points, but still every turn they're only going to have a very good chance of casting one spell. And though those spells can be quite powerful with something like teleport, it'd be nice if you had an option to maybe cast 2 weaker spells. So my idea would be that if it was a level 1 or 2 wizard, they can only cast 1 spell with their activations. If they're a level 3, 4 or higher wizard, they can start to break up their spell dice to cast multiple spells. What they would look like would be, say, this Grey Seal was level 4 wizard. They would have 4 dice to use to cast spells, and they could do as many spells as they want, but they're limited to just a 4 dice in total over those spells. So they might have one high level spell which they want a good chance of getting off, and they use 3 dice, and then they might have a really low level spell like Shift, where they are going to risk it just on 1 dice, or they might have 2 spells which need a 7+, and they might go 2 dice on each of those to have a pretty good chance of getting both those spells off. I think that's a nice little fix, which means that it's more likely that people would start to use level 3 or 4 wizards more often, and that they would be actually worth their points. So in terms of shooting, artillery, and wizards, that's just a brief overview of some of the issues that I think are in the game with the shooting and the artillery at the moment, and some of the potential fixes for the shooting, the artillery, and potentially some nice little changes for the wizards that could be implemented in Oathmark version 2. Let me know your thoughts. I'm really interested to hear what people think about shooting and artillery, and if they've had a similar experience to me playing Oathmark. Do you think the shooting is too powerful, or should it just be kept as how it is? Till next time, I will see you later.